The Dread Lady. I saw her when my father's car crashed. The family car hit another vehicle, and our car rolled down into a drainage ditch, upside down. I remember seeing my parents' lifeless bodies laying bloodied and bruised from the impact. My father's skull was crushed in. Pieces lay on the windscreen, and my mother's throat had been slit, nearly fully decapitating her. Her neck clung on with barely a slither of skin. Droplets of blood dribbled down onto the floor, staining it with a vivid red color. My seatbelt held me snugly in place, unable to move, and I waited for help or death to take me first. I dropped my phone. It lay beneath me, just out of reach, and no matter how much I reached for it, I couldn't get to it. I remember running my hand over my stomach and feeling the warm blood. Something pierced me and I didn't know what I should do. I called out trying to get my phone to unlock, but it needed a thumbprint. Helpless, I watched as I was unable to do anything. I heard a whisper, "You are not alone." Serene and beautiful, the voice of an angel. I saw the outline of her body, feminine curves shrouded by a semi-transparent black mist. I couldn't tell if it was a multi-layered gown or not. It was difficult to see if she was walking or floating above the ground. Either way, it was slow and graceful. I only saw her eyes, a pale celestial grey, and they regarded me kindly. She stood by the wreckage, just out of arm's reach, and I wondered why she didn't help me. The pool of blood was darker, and the bodies of my parents were also gone. The shadows of their remains would flicker in and out before they finally faded away, with no ashes left behind. Why didn't she reach for my phone to call an ambulance? I looked down at it and saw it was blank. No battery left. Deep down, I knew she wasn't of this world. "Are you an angel?" She smiled under her veil. "Some call me that, while others call me a devil, a demon. What I can offer you is a chance for peace." Her voice was soft and smooth, a gentle melody. "My parents are gone," I sulked, unsure of the offer placed in front of me. Pain gripped my body, unable to escape it, and I looked at the broken bodies of my parents, wishing they were alive and well. Wait, why did they appear again? They have already left. They're at peace, and they're waiting for you to join them. Despite how obvious it was, I didn't realize, want to believe that they were dead yet. The harsh reality struck me and I started to weep. She watched me, interested, and tilted her head to one side. The veil on the lower part of her face moved, revealed skeletal teeth and the hollow jaw of the dead. I froze, too scared to move, and she withdrew her hand. "Am I dead?" "Yes. You begin a new adventure now," she began. "No, I want to stay here." She winced. Her beautiful eyes changed to empty, shallow pits of darkness, and she let out a soft growl. I wasn't sure what I said to offend her. "This is not your world, little one. The more you stay here, the more likely you are to twist into something you no longer recognize," she explained, perhaps with the most patience she was capable of expressing. Around us, the real world was no more. In the distance, I saw shadow figures walking through, as though they were living their lives, and I wondered what they were. I heard haunting sounds of car engines, with sharp, sudden braking sounds, and the crunch of metal and bone, the ripping of flesh. I saw 2 headlights of a giant truck aimed at me, the lights blinding, and I heard the loud boom of the truck's horn. I turned my head to shield my eyes. When I saw the truck disappear, I heard crying up and down the road of different people. The asphalt road changed to what it had been hundreds of years ago. Before my eyes, I saw horses and carriages of different types, cars from the turn of the century, and other forms of transportation. There were people, some walking with their intestines dangling on the ground behind them, unaware of their injuries, while others were painfully aware. Each walked in their own misery. Her hand was offered, long-fingered with manicured nails. I reached out with my own trembling hand. It was smaller, and once it connected with hers, fingertips curled around to hold mine. I was no longer in my body. I felt light, floating, and I stood alongside her. She turned to lead me. "Do not let go of my hand, little one. I will guide you." She didn't look down at me. Instead, looking into the distance at something I couldn't see, a goal I couldn't understand, and a direction I wasn't aware of. Hands from unseen sources reached out to me, grabbing and pulling at my hair or my clothes. Some were human and others rotted, trying to pull me down to the ground. I gripped her hand tightly, quickened my pace to a brisk walk, and still struggled to keep up with her. I could hear their wailing, their pleads, their anger, and their sadness over dying, being forced to linger for all eternity in limbo, unable to move forward or back. They were all ages, the elderly, barely able to move, and they clung on to me, hungry for their youth, bones protruding from their body, teeth long fallen out, and patches of grey hair falling to the ground. The stench of the dead filled the air, and I tried to keep the aroma away. Others who dragged IV drips and had bandages cover their bodies. Clearly people who had died at hospital, or perhaps inside of ambulances. Some no longer had hands to grab, only reaching out at me with severed arms with missing hands, black blood squirting up into the air. There were children, babies, crawling and screaming, pulling at my clothing, trying to drag me down with them. There were some under the mist that sounded the most terrifying of all. A long, aching moan as pieces of bone tried to slice into my ankles, to drag me under. They were weighing me down and I didn't want to join them. Wherever the lady would take me, surely had to be better than staying here with any of them. "Please, don't let me go," I pleaded with her. She didn't look at me, or acknowledge me at all, and still maintained her pace, oblivious and unaffected by the dead's cries for mercy. I could see the road in front of me, clearly defined, twisted shiny rock distorted into bricks, leading us down a path with no end, and I looked up at her, trying to get her to acknowledge me. It was difficult to walk with her while they pulled me down. The sounds they made were horrific, and it was hard to shut them out. "Who are you?" The skull did not falter. A flicker of her mortal form gave me a sideward glance, interested in what I said. She lifted her free hand, gently curled her fingertips, and the dead around me faded to ash. Their demands disappeared along with them. The world around us was black and white. Barren trees without adornment of leaves stood on a desolate earth. A grey mist surrounded us, concealing whatever creatures had glowing eyes from the tree line, and I couldn't tell what they were. I was relieved to be away from the wandering hordes of the lingering dead, but that didn't make this place any more peaceful. "Who are you?" I insisted. "The Watcher, the mistress between worlds, the guide in the dark, the dread lady, the living and the dead. All names I've been called through history, and with many tongues." She responded, each title drawn out, and her words were slow, still with my hand in hers, and we kept walking along that endless road. I didn't recognize any of the names she told me. I figured she was some forgotten goddess, whose original name had been lost to time, and now she kept going on with her eternal task. She never said the name she called herself. "Where are you taking me?" It felt like an eternity that we were walking. I looked back to the car where my body and those of my parents remained. The car was long gone, not even a shadow to alert me where it had been, and I had to wonder whether it had even been there at all. My memories of my life were slowly fading away, the little hobbies and trivial items that meant so much to me. Time means nothing when you're dead. Along the road of the dead, some refuse and become trapped where they are. others seeing something or someone along the road and refuse to walk with me. I leave them to the fate they choose. I cannot and will not force someone to walk with me. We didn't make any footsteps, and I wasn't sure if I could anymore. Did that mean I was floating? How many stay behind? I saw glowing eyes from the shadows, and their bodies were hidden by the mist. They never came close, and I fear what would have happened if she wasn't here to protect me. Their eyes were amber, bright red, or glowing white, standing at different heights. It was difficult to see what they were. They slowly circled us, always keeping their distance from her, and I nearly let go when I gazed up at an enormous beast with glowing red eyes. It towered over the tree line and flexed large clawed fingers. Its focus was on me. Its lips drew back to reveal teeth that didn't glimmer in the light. It was a creature born and embraced by shadow. More than half choose to stay. Most regret it, and find themselves in eternal suffering. She reflected, still unfazed by the creature watching us. We walked, so now it was right behind us. I could feel its eyes on the back of my head. I wanted to look back at it, but had a feeling that was the wrong thing to do. It felt close, too close. I glanced over my shoulder to see a long clawed arm behind me. I drew my breath in to scream. The dread lady turned. A skeletal finger rested where her lips should have been. Was enough to silence me, and I exhaled. I didn't need to breathe. Old habits from life were difficult to stop. Some enjoy the chaos and wish to lure more people to join them. I could feel the pressure of it being behind me. I wanted to scream, to acknowledge it or something. Why didn't she push it away like she did with the dead? It lingered, and I tried to distract myself from thinking about it. How many people have you tried to take on this? I paused, considering what it would be called. Death journey? She seemed to question her answer, taking it in. I and my siblings have reaped all your kind since the beginning. When you were closer to your ancestors, I guided all those who came before, and whispered different words till they found their next life. You reaped everything? Yes. This sparked my curiosity. Even dinosaurs? I was shocked, somehow only thinking of humanity's sentience, and forgetting that other animals had theirs. Yes. I did not walk in this form. It changes depending on those who are guided. I wondered how many forms she had. Did it change for every species that was taken down this road? Why were there no ghosts of dinosaurs or other animals that had passed away? What is your original form? I don't have one. When creation happened, I was born, and someday I will reap myself. Then I will simply cease to be. Perhaps I will reawaken in a new life or role. I don't know where I will walk or if I will. Then, perhaps, I will disappear. I never thought a reaper or a goddess could simply no longer be, or be so accepting of it. I simply had to ask, why aren't there ghosts of dinosaurs or extinct species walking around? I haven't heard any tales of them. Her expression became sad. A crimson tear fell from either eye and descended down both cheeks, staining them. When the last one walked, they fell silent and went into their next incarnation. And besides, few, if any, would be able to see or hear them. It was an explanation that I didn't expect. Why was she sad about this? The loss of a species, and no longer being able to join them on their death march. It gave me more to think about. My suffering was dwarfed by all the dead who had come before, a journey that would be shared by every living creature. I don't know why. but the creature who lingered drifted off, fading away to nothing, and the weight had been lifted. In the time we have been here, have other people died? Yes, many. Time does not exist the same for me, as it does for your kind. Why are you here with me rather than with them? I sensed her displeasure. The blood-stained tears disappeared from her face. Cold, bone-chilling rain poured down from the sky, and it felt good to finally feel something, even if it was unpleasant. I'm grateful you're here with me, and I don't want you to go, I added hastily. Perhaps even too much? If you're here, does that mean other people are left to linger? Not everyone wishes to go. Soldiers and parents tend to be the worst. Unwilling to leave their posts, and determined to stay to protect their families or causes. They spend their time watching them, only draining them both, ignoring my warnings until they twist and turn into something their previous selves would despise. I listened to her explain, and I was thankful that I didn't refuse her offer. Would I have been stuck with the dead who reached out for me, forever bound to that road, or to the place the car accident happened? I had so many questions about their fates, and what could have occurred. Do you always give multiple chances? No. I have a soft spot for children. I didn't expect this. The sky changed once more, from grey to red, with no sun appearing in the sky. It went from the sharp chill of the cold to blistering hot. I panted, even though I didn't need to breathe anymore. Again, she was completely immune to the elements of this strange place. I didn't know if this was her domain, or one she simply walked through. I opened my jacket and let it slide down my arms to rest at my elbows, trying to keep cool. I wanted to discard my clothing completely, but I didn't want to leave any trace of myself here. It burned my nose, mouth, and throat. I would have done anything for some water to moisten my throat. I couldn't speak. This part of the journey felt truly endless. I didn't know why I had to endure this temperature, or what purpose it held. Soon I reached a point where every step was becoming increasingly difficult. I practically hung from her hand. She dragged me along the damaged, cracked earth, and I dreaded letting her go. She didn't look down at me, or verbally check to see what was happening. I figured this was part of what happens. I focused on holding on until it passed. I closed my eyes, imagining better things during my life, and the heat faded. The relief did not last long. The fog of war surrounded us. I saw soldiers and warriors throughout history march toward their endless goals. Rotting flesh clung to their bones. Torn and weathered uniforms hung from their bodies. They had the wounds that caused their passing. Somehow they were able to move, weaponry in hand, and I wondered why they didn't move on. Why am I here? I'm no soldier or warrior, I questioned faintly, finally finding my voice. We all must pass through, she answered. I saw the first humans attack each other with stone and club, bludgeoning each other until bones cracked and organs burst. I saw and heard a knight on an endless patrol, murmuring that he must warn them. An endless quest with no end. I heard arrows being fired, the clash of shields, and weapons made of fire and disease. All purged the warrior dead, only for them to be brought back. The day went quickly. When they were injured and dying, they spoke, and briefly found peace, only to be driven into battle again. Each day renewed the cycle, their fate for all time, unknown when they would finally find rest and salvation. I wondered how many actually wanted to find peace. Some looked truly happy to be here. The next place was difficult to look. I saw victims of warfare. They ran past with their bodies on fire, their skin burning and falling off. I heard the wailing of families for their deceased or missing family members, wanting them to be returned safe and sound, only to find their corpses, or sitting and waiting endlessly for news, an endless wait that would never cease. Shadows of messengers would ride toward them, only to ignore them, or disappear at the final moment. Their wails of unknown filled my ears. Next were the children and the elderly. I had to turn away, unable to look at the horrors they had endured. It all didn't seem fair. The horrific screams, wails, battle cries all merged into one frightening sound, until we reached somewhere pleasant. The sunlight was gentle on my face, the air soft, and I opened my eyes to see a lush valley. The path was difficult to see now. The grass readily overtook it, and I wondered why anyone would want to pass through here. It was so breathtakingly beautiful. I could hear the faint sounds of birds chirping, and all I wanted was to skip off into the grass and curl up and sleep. I slowed my pace and felt the pull this time from her. "Do not linger nor slow down," she warned, a mystical growl behind her words. I was so caught up by the magic of the place that I felt my grip releasing, and she didn't tighten her grip. "I will not warn you again." It was hard to remember the pain of those strange places I had been previously. I wanted to. I know they were in pain, but this place was perfect. I want to let go, but I frowned. The blades of grass swayed and suddenly cracked like whips. The trees were distorted, pulsing, and twisted into bloated shapes, their branches becoming long, twisting arms that circled toward us. I gripped the goddess' hand tight and tried to use her body to shield myself from them. They hissed, spiraling, and circled around her. I knew they would have taken me without her. What was that? Not everything is as it seems. I dreaded what was coming up. We were surrounded by reaching hands on elongated limbs, their screaming mouths muffled by the layer of skin that coated their faces. Their open mouths and around their eyes had deep, self-inflicted scratch marks around them. There was a horde of them. They were so absorbed in their own suffering that they didn't seem to notice me. I didn't know who they were, or why they were forced to endure this fate. Every time they managed to pull one layer off, another instantly grew over the top, and the cycle looped around once more. Our journey continued. This place faded away, and soon we were floating in darkness. It was difficult to tell where things were now, since there was no light. It was impossible to gain any perspective when the environment was like this. There was no sound. The comparison to the overwhelming feelings, this place simply felt empty and void of life. The fear I felt was altered. There was no reason to be scared, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something would appear out of the black. She, however, seemed to be perfectly content in this world. The light of her bones and the flickering curve of her skin lit up the area around us. I expected there to be footsteps, or some sound to indicate our movement. There was none. No anger, no grief, no sadness. It simply was. Everywhere felt like time no longer existed. Yet here I wondered where I'd even come into being. I thought I heard familiar whispers, calling my name and asking me to run to them, to join them, to stop them being alone in the empty dark. I could have sworn they were my parents, my friends, my loved ones. My parents made sense because they were dead, but my friends were young. They surely wouldn't die for some time. I kept looking in the direction they were coming from, or trying to. It surrounded me. There was nothing to tell me what they were. "Please help me, daughter. Please help me, daughter. Please help me, daughter."
Let us feed.
What do you hear? I gave her a quizzical look. My loved ones, my family and my friends. They're calling out to me. She regarded me quietly. I felt she desired for me to remember something. It was on the tip of my tongue, and it took me some time to recall. My mother. She's crying, and she's trapped. I need to save her. Yes. Yes. Come to us. She will come to us, guide. And you can do nothing. The voices may mislead you. She won't listen. She will be ours. They will try to lure you in. You cannot interfere with her free will. Remember? Or the truce is forever broken, and we will have free reign. She stiffened. Her grip on my hand tightened, and her eyes lowered. Dark tears formed and trickled down her cheeks, and she forced herself to maintain her usual grip on my hand. Soft, gentle, and enough for me to withdraw mine at any time. I wondered what was going through her mind. If I could ever understand it, the choice is yours. We do not stop. If you want to go to the voices, that is up to you. I didn't know what to do. My hand remained in hers, and I kept glancing around me, waiting to hear my parents and my loved ones again. They didn't speak, no matter how much I wished for them to. The emptiness called out to me. The hope of what could be. The temptation pulled at me. And this wasn't where my parents deserved to be. Surely they'll be wherever she would lead me. And not in this strange, empty void. I kept looking, letting the voices ring out, and through the whispers, I heard them. I finally heard the malicious voice through the whispering.
You are ours.
I let out a frightened scream and wanted to run. I started to run, trying to pull the goddess to go faster, and her pace remained the same. Slow, steady, and would not rush nor stop for anybody. Why didn't she understand? I slowed down to walk alongside her, even though everything inside told me to break away from her and run off into the distance to escape.
She can hear us.
I can't decide which is worse to endure, hearing the tortured whispers of my family trying to lure me in, now replaced with the growls and threats of the void. Without her there to guide me, I would have been lost, and I didn't know what my fate would have been. My soul gone, nothing but their plaything, and I wondered about where my parents were, and if they were safe. Do they have my parents? Are they here? I asked, hoping for a good answer. Your path is your own, as is theirs. Each soul must make this journey and decide for themselves. It is both your blessing and your curse. Why didn't you tell me about them? The voices. That they were lying to me. You need to use your own discernment. That wasn't comforting when they had been wrong previously, and only at the last minute I was safe. The whispering and threats plagued me. They blurred together and suffocated me with their cruelty. Their threats toward my loved ones were unbearable. They told me what they were doing to them, and what they were going to do when they finally walked through here. I hoped my voice wouldn't be used to lure them. I wanted to warn them. I needed to warn them. I had to stop myself from worrying, letting go of the decisions they would have to make for themselves. And finally, the darkness drifted away, as though it had never been, and was a mere memory. Water surrounded us. It poured around our feet, and instinctively I panicked as the water rose, up my calves, then around my thighs, then my waist, chest, shoulders, and I took a gasp when it reached my neck. She side-eyed me. I think she did anyway. My old living concerns were strange to her, and old habits still lingered for me. The water raised above my head. My hair swayed in the ripples of the liquid, and the fabrics of her gown waved around her. The outline of her body, A glimpse every now and then made me curious, but I didn't want to ask. I held my breath, and finally, let go. I didn't need to worry. Around us I could hear the sound of the water, whale sounds as they swam above us, and light trickled down from the surface. My legs gently kicked to keep me moving forward with her, my hand not leaving hers, and I wondered about this place, the contrast of each one. I wondered whether each was a form of purgatory, a place of reflection before heaven or hell would finally be reached. A variety of sea life swam past us, both from the current time, the past, and what I imagine the future will be. A large whale, I think, began to swim in our direction. It was enormous, and could swallow several people whole in a single mouthful. She showed no signs of fear or avoiding it. She showed no signs of fear or avoidance. Therefore, what else was there for me to do but stay with her? The whale disappeared, turning to ash, and the remains drifted to the bottom of the ocean. Another test I had passed. For what purpose I was unsure of. She said nothing, and we continued until we reached a gate. These weren't the pearly gates I've been taught about. They were a rusted, chain-link gate, held together with pieces of wire, and flanked by a mixture of barb and razor wire spirals. Around it there were long twisted weeds. Then the plant life faded off into nothing. The gate looked as though it could blow away with the breeze. Was this a gate to hell? For the first time she stopped, and I did too. I looked at the gates and back at her. Is this hell? Did I not pass the tests? I asked, confused, and with a growing dread of what was to follow. Why do you think it is hell? She asked, a tilt of her head. The shift kept happening. Her fabric swayed around her and her veil faded away. The skull and skeleton temporarily removed in favor of a beautiful woman. She had her bright eyes once more, ankle-length hair, and I noticed her features changed. The faces of many women in different races blurred in front of me. How many faces had she worn while she followed her sacred duty? She rested her free hand to rest on mine, one warm with flesh, and another, the ice-cold caress of the dead. I gazed up at her in awe. The one who had guided me through all the terrors and tribulations of death. Things I couldn't understand yet. It isn't what I expected. It isn't beautiful or grand. I wanted to see... I tried to grasp the right word. More. It appears different for each person, who arrives seeing something different, tied to their own hopes for the future, the lives they have led, and the ones they still need to experience. Her skeletal hand gestured toward the gate. This is up to you. Do you wish for a new life, or to rest until the end? What is the end? When all ceases to be. You will feel nothing until then. It will be as though you are asleep, and you will feel no pain when it comes. I didn't understand the offer placed in front of me. The thought of nothingness until the end didn't appeal, especially when there was no time frame offered. I wanted to experience life, the good and the bad that life had to offer. Would it mean I have to walk through where we came from again? She gave me a sad, knowing smile and inclined her head in agreement. I didn't think I could do it again. The memory of my travel through was fading. I remembered being frightened, worried, confused. Yet there was no specific memory that stood out. Will you be the one who comes to collect me? As I have done many times before. I regarded her closely. There was a familiarity to her. All the faces were, at one point my own, shown back to me. One after another. There had to be 100 lives lived, with barely any memories from each of them remaining with me. It was reassuring to know she will be back when I passed out, even if I didn't remember her from the previous round. And the gate slowly opened with no one to do it. I then knew I had already decided. I would live another life. It is time. Her warm, human hand gradually opened palm up, with mine resting on top, and letting me decide to lift it off. I didn't know if my resolve was being tested, but I didn't care. Do I get to choose who and what I come back as? I asked, hopeful. Perhaps I would return around the same time as the rest of my loved ones. She closed her eyes, shook her head, and I knew it was up to fate. I lifted my hand. There was no great nemesis to take me, nor drag me away somewhere unsafe to feast on my soul. I looked toward the gate, then onward to my next life, and I was so grateful to her guiding me through. The idea of residing in a torturous limbo was agony. Thank you for... I looked back and she was gone, as though she was never there. There was nobody else around, and nor did I have any feelings of being watched, nor stalked by something wicked. With my courage now restored, I walked through the gate and didn't feel any different. I heard them steadily close behind me. The gate itself disappeared, and I was left to walk alone. I didn't like this part. I had gotten so used to the company that I felt naked without her. Please, please come back, I thought, on repeat in my mind. If she came back, I was sure I was safe. I was walking down a long, deep tunnel with a pin of light at the bottom. I could hear my footsteps walk toward it. I plodded along until I realized that it was working, and I was on my way. The light grew larger, and I was invigorated. I'd be able to breathe for the first time, to find new life, and perhaps I would see my loved ones all over again. I finally reached it, and a burst of light surrounded me. I stepped out and looked around. Everything was similar. The buildings mostly looked like what I remembered, but clothing was distinctively more futuristic looking, as were the cars. A couple walked past me, and I was able to get a closer look. The woman turned her hand upward to reveal a hologram of a cube as she walked. It told them how to get to some restaurant or something. They didn't seem to notice me standing there. I heard her, a weeping sound in the bushes, and saw a homeless woman, wrapped in newspapers in an effort to keep warm, her toes and fingers turning blue. I looked at the couple who ignored her existence. I reached down to hold her hands to try to warm them up. She gazed up at me with wide, horror-filled eyes, sobbed, and murmured how it was time. She needed to go. To please take her and ease her suffering. I looked at my hands and they were mortal, shifting to skeletal, and I didn't agree to this. Was it now my turn to escort her through the places I'd been? Yes. It is your time to collect. I heard her words in my mind. No! She was supposed to come and get me. I didn't have time to be concerned about this. I offered her my hand. She took a moment to consider it, and I said, "It is time. Do not let go of my hand, and come with me. I will keep you safe." Her soul rose, no longer bound to her mortal body, and began the long walk with me. I hope you enjoy this story. What did you think of it? Let me know what you thought in the comments section down below. Don't forget to stab the like button, subscribe, hit the bell and leave a comment. This video is made with the support of my incredible channel members, Patreon subscribers, and all my viewers. Thank you so much for supporting me. Don't forget to check out my social media accounts below, including my merch. Stay safe, my little spooklings. And remember, I'll be watching you.